Houston Texans fans, I got a tough subject for you, and I just want to get your raw emotions on this because I feel like you just got slapped in the face. And I am not from Houston. As you know, this is a channel where it's our second channel. We're Lions fans, but we also love the NFL, so we love talking about teams that the NFL national media kind of ignores. And Houston is one of them. And I think one of the things about Houston that everybody looks back to, at least on the national level, even Madden the game, makes it so that you can stay in Houston or move to Houston and bring back the Houston Oilers uniforms. And earlier this year, the Tennessee Titans busted out their Houston Oilers uniforms. It was Will Levis's first game as a Titan. But they busted out the old uniforms because everybody knows they are very possibly the most beautiful uniforms to ever be worn. And my response to that was, as long as they don't ever wear them against the Houston Texans, because that would be a slap in the face. Well, here you go. Titans will wear Oilers uniforms against the Texans on Sunday. And to make matters worse, like CJ Stroud might be out, Nico Collins might be out, Tank Dell might be out. So it might not even be a great game for the Texans. Like for me, it's one of those things where it's like, oh my goodness. So here's what I want to do. I want to take kind of a trip a little bit down memory lane. But first I want to ask everybody this question. Do you wish your team name was still the Houston Oilers? Or would you rather your team name be the Houston Texans? Do you like your current uniforms and helmets, or do you wish you could still have the old Oilers uniforms and helmets? Now, for me here in Michigan, just chilling, like I know I love uniforms from the 90s. I just do. And so when you talk about throwbacks, when the Tampa Bay Buccaneers wear the creamsicles, love it. Eat it up. When the New England Patriots have their uniforms where, the little guys hiking the ball on their helmet, love it. Eat it up. When the Seahawks wore their 90s throwback colors, when they played against the Cowboys, loved it. Ate it up. Like all these teams that will go back to the 90s, I still wish the Lions would do a 90s throwback uniform. Now, our uniform is still similar to the one we had in the 90s, but that Honolulu blue and the way the numbers were on that jersey, they just popped. I mean, they look so good. So, but out of all of those uniforms, all the beautiful things, I have to admit the Oilers uniforms back then were beautiful. So to go back to memory lane, Bud Adams, the owner of the old Oilers, he honestly became fed up with the whole Astrodome thing. And so what happened was you have this aging Astrodome stadium that they had just done some renovations to, but not nearly good enough. And Bud Adams was sick of it. He wanted more luxury boxes. He wanted a awesome domed stadium that maybe they could share with the Houston Rockets, kind of similar to what the Spurs were doing in the Astrodome or the Alamo Dome and stuff like that. So like there was all of this. It wasn't just the Oilers that wanted a new one, but it became clear he wasn't going to get the funding. So in 1995, he said, we're moving to Nashville. And they were going to move to Nashville in 1997 or something like that, 96, 97, somewhere in there. I want to say 97. But in the meantime, in the year or two between then, the Houston fans were like, forget you. We're not, if you're moving the team, we're not going to keep going to games. This was crazy to me because when Oakland, when the Raiders were about to move, fans were still going to games because they were moving to Vegas. They weren't moving that far away. So like it was one of those things where they kept going, but not Houston fans. They were like, we're done with you. If you're moving the team to Nashville, that's not our team. So that's kind of the question I have. Like, and does it depend on how old you are, right? Like if you're old enough, are you just like, I hate anything to do with the Oilers because that was Bud Adams. If you're young enough, you're like, I don't even have any connection to these jerseys, to these uniforms. So the funny thing about it with Bud Adams was People weren't showing up. And to make matters worse, because they weren't showing up, the NFL has its blackout policy. So if a game isn't sold out, you don't get to watch it in the greater Houston area. Like, oh, that's brutal. Like, this is something we struggled with for so many years as Lions fans because we didn't have a team that was good enough to attract enough fans to go, so they'd black out the game. Luckily, instead of living on the east side over in Detroit, I was on the west side in the Grand Rapids area of Michigan, so I could still watch the game. So it was one of those things, but if you were living anywhere else in Texas, they were probably showing you the Cowboys game. So it was so hard to watch Oilers football. And then they moved to Nashville. But before they moved to Nashville, because the biggest stadium in Nashville is Vanderbilt, and it's 41,000. So they tried to play in Memphis. And so, because it was 60,000, but they never got more than 30,000 fans to show up for that one. So it was terrible. And then this is kind of a funny story that parallels it that I have. Is they played in the mid-90s, they played the Pittsburgh Steelers, and they sold over 50,000 tickets for the first time since they moved and were playing in Memphis. Here's the problem. 2/3 of those fans were Steelers fans. And I remember having season tickets to the Detroit Lions the year after they went 0-16. And we played the Pittsburgh Steelers late in that year. And Detroit, that stadium was not full almost any games. There were 2 games where it was a sellout crowd. It was against the Bears and it was against the Steelers. And when we played the Steelers, of the 65-ish thousand people, 67,000 people that Ford Field holds, 40,000 were Steelers fans. It was a road game. It was absolutely nuts. So, like, I understand that, which is kind of funny. So they then moved back, played in Vanderbilt for a year, and then they officially changed their name to the Titans in 1998. So that's kind of the official thing. Like, most people don't even know around the country that the Oilers don't even officially belong to Houston, like the Texans. And so, like, all the records that you have of the Houston Oilers and all that kind of stuff, it still is put under the ownership of the Tennessee Titans. It's not like the Cleveland Browns. Well, I mean, it kind of is because they moved to Baltimore, but then they made another team in Cleveland. So it is actually very similar to that. But I think that's my question for all of you. Is this a slap in the face that you have to watch your team in Houston go up against a team sporting the uniforms that you wore 30 years ago? The beautiful powder blues, and just like looking at that. Or are you saying to yourself, I don't care. I don't like that team. I don't want to even be a part of it. So it doesn't matter to me. I would love to hear your thoughts on this. So go to the comments. Let me know what you think. And hey, maybe we'll even talk about the game a little bit at some point. All right. Thanks for watching. See you.